beyond digital, crafting adaptive organizations in the age of AI. And our speaker is Ranjit, Metrani, Executive Vice President, CtrlS.
Good evening. Am I audible? Yeah, I am. Good evening, eminent CIOs, next 100 winners. At the outset, congratulations to all the next 100 winners. I think over the last couple of days, you must have heard a lot about AI, so I'm not going to be speaking the benefits of AI, what AI can do. But it's interesting that AI is not something very new. I was just trying to figure out when was the first algorithm that actually was developed. It was developed way back in 1957 by a guy called Frank Rosenblatt. He developed an algorithm called perceptron, which worked on the artificial neural network, which basically improved the computational needs way back in 1957. So it's not something new. And when you walk out actually, right, you saw all the partners who are there, including us, speak about AI. Everybody speaks about AI today, right? They tell you what's the benefit, what they can do for you. Every single guy is talking about it. But let's look at what they don't tell you. Everybody speaks about what AI can do, right? Everybody. Anybody who walks out there, they tell you we can do all of these. But what is it they don't tell you, right? Let's look at that aspect of it. Now, interestingly, if you look at some of the mature organizations, 43% of those mature organizations who have done full generative AI found that the costs are very prohibitive. What are these costs? Let me take some example, and one of the biggest example I can think of was ChatGPT, right? When the learning module was done for ChatGPT, it was done on about 285,000 processor cores. It used about 10,000 graphic cards. It used about, the computational power was about 800 petaflops, was what it was built on, right? It was equal to almost about top 20 supercomputers in the world. That was a known cost probably for ChatGPT, right? But let's look at the other costs which ChatGPT had. For a year power consumption of ChatGPT, it is enough to power New Zealand for 3 months. That's the amount it consumes. It's enough to power Nigeria for 4 months. A single query, when you run a ChatGPT, takes about 2.9 watt hours. That's almost 10 times more than what Google search does. Google search is about 0.3 watt hours. Now imagine if Google search were to infuse AI into its every single query. What would happen? Google search every day is about 8.3 billion searches in a day. So you can imagine the kind of power that's going to get consumed by Google, right? So power consumption is substantially high. It's not just the power. When the learning module was done, there is also water for data centers. And it's very interesting, when they did the same thing for ChatGPT, the data centers consumed 185,000 gallons of water. That's equal to the amount it is required to cool down a nuclear reactor. That's the kind of water it consumes, right? So every single time you put a query in ChatGPT, anywhere between 5 to 50 queries, it consumes 500 milliliters of water. These are prohibitive costs. When you look at AI, you look at only one aspect of it, right? So there are a lot of prohibitive costs that comes into AI. It's not just the cost. There is also the complexity of integration when you look at AI. Every single organization goes through these challenges, and there are multiple reasons. Right from legacy applications, legacy infrastructures, different databases, mergers and acquisitions. There are various challenges that comes in when you're trying to look at the complexity of integration in AI. So it's not as straightforward. When you're looking at AI modules and you're developing certain things, it's not straightforward. So it is very complex, and every single organization, these are mature organizations, this data is about mature organizations, right? They are going through these complexities. The other piece is also very important, the data challenges which they face. 3 in 10 organizations had data breaches around AI privacy. Just in the US alone, last year, there were 353 million data breaches that happened, consumer data which was breached, out of which 10% was almost of T-Mobile, right? So clearly it is a very, very big area of concern for every single organization. And when you look at AI privacy, right, it's very interesting. I was reading through a report which was recently published in January on Digiyatra. All of us use Digiyatra, right? 29% of the passengers who downloaded it had no clue that they had downloaded a Digiyatra specifically with privacy concerns, right? 15%, and this, I've seen it happen multiple times, 15% of the folks who go into an airport download the Digiyatra because the gate on the other side is busy. They just want to enter it. They know Digiyatra is the easiest way to access. They just go into it. They have no clue in terms of what the privacy part of it is. And many of us actually realistically don't read through a lot of things, right? So clearly this is one of the area which is a very, very big challenge when it comes to AI platforms, right? This is very interesting, and this became very big, the ethical bias part of it, right? This became very big when Google Gemini had an issue. When it had problems in terms of the bias it created on historical figures, specifically to the whites. So this is another area which always you will find, and it continues to be a problem as far as most of the organizations are concerned, right? When you look at building large AI modules, I spoke about what ChatGPT does, right? You will always have scalability issues. How do you scale a platform to ensure that there is efficiency for you to deliver what you're trying to do? And this is one of the biggest problems most of the large generative AI modules face in the industry today. That can you scale on the go? Keep in mind, it's not just the computational part. That's the very easy part to actually manage, right? Think about what all I just said, the power which is required for you to run it, the amount of water the data center is going to consume. There are a lot of factors which are related to it. So this is another problem which comes in when you're trying to look at any generative models for AI. The other piece which I again was reading through, and one of the problems of AI has been the ROI itself. And we've seen a lot of failures across in the last so many years, since 2015, 2014, right from Microsoft failed, LG failed, lot of large companies have failed in having some of these generative AI modules, specifically which they built for their businesses. And the reason why they failed was not that the module was not great. The reason they failed or they did not continue with it was because of the ROI which comes in when you're trying to build some platforms like this. So you will have to be cognizant of the ROI when you're trying to build a platform like this, right? Last but not the least, it's very important to look at the regulatory hurdles. My friend earlier spoke about GDPR compliances. India today has its own regulatory compliances as far as India Data Protection Act is concerned. So this is another area which is very, very important. You'll have to keep in mind when you're trying to do this. So what is it that's really required? When you look at trying to build AI platforms, AI modules at a very high level, I'm not going to get into the details, right? You obviously need a very clear strategy. You need to know why you're doing it, what is the end result of that particular AI platform you're developing. You need to invest in data management. And the reason I state this is most of the organizations have data in silos. And the critical part for AI is if you don't have data integrity, if you don't have data which is at place, you will always find it difficult to get the right result. You will have to invest in tech. You can't live on legacy platforms, old architecture. You cannot develop generative AI platforms on that, right? You will have to pilot AI projects. Start small, then make it big. That's the only way to do it. You will have to establish certain guidelines within the organization in terms of the ethical guidelines which is required so that you don't get into what Google Gemini had. You will have to monitor and adapt. The reason the monitor and adapt becomes critical is because an organization obviously has multiple businesses, multiple processes. All of those has to fall in place together for you to enable a success of it. You will have to collaborate with external parties because there will always be platforms and technologies which you are going to use where you will not have a capability to actually go deliver it, so you will have to work with parties which are all the partners who are out there, right? And of course, you'll have to communicate and educate within the organization in terms of what you want to deliver as far as AI platforms are concerned. From a CtrlS perspective, if you look at it, we are a group of companies. We are one of the world's largest rated 4 data center. We have various subsidiaries which actually enable some of these platforms which I just spoke. One of the newest one which we've added to our list is 8bit.ai, which delivers GPU as a service. We have Big Little, which again does business analytics. We have Pioneer. Pioneer is a networking company where we deliver networks across to our customers, which holds the NLD and the ILD licenses. Then we have Schnabel. Schnabel is a German company which we acquired. It's a data center design company, which we design data centers for hyperscalers. Then we have a subsidiary which is Cloud4C, which is one of the largest leading managed service provider for hyperscale cloud. Then all the areas around the digital part is done by automation and deep forest. So we will enable all the platforms which is required for us to deliver AI platforms. But if you look at the stack which is there, right? So what is the stack which I spoke to you about a lot about, the prohibitive cost, all of those areas? These are the 3 critical stacks which make up for you to deliver that. One is the hardware. The baseline hardware is very, very important in terms of the compute which is required for you to scale, right? The second is the model itself, the foundational model which you need to build. Whether you want to build it on proprietary stack, you want to build it on open stack, you can try and figure out that based on what you're trying to achieve as far as your business goal is concerned. There are also refined models, which are standard models which we can deliver. Last but not the least, the application ecosystem itself, where we are able to deliver with all the ones which I mentioned there. This is largely the stack which we position across, and we want to work with customers to build the stack across to our customers. But I mentioned to you earlier that the data centers are very critical for you to run any Gen AI platforms. All our data centers are AI ready. These are the flagship data centers we have across India. Our biggest one, of course, is in Mumbai. It's a campus. But we have our edge data centers also operational right now in Patna and Lucknow, where we'll be able to deliver edge platforms. What is AI ready? When you look at data centers which are there, what is AI ready data center, right? One, water cooling, liquid immersion cooling. The idea is that it reduces carbon footprint, it reduces energy. For example, we have AI-ready racks which are there. The power provision for that is almost up to 100 kilowatt. The back-end provision for that is to deliver almost 250 kilowatt. This is what we deliver from an AI readiness when it comes to delivering platforms across to our customers. These are the new upcoming data centers which we have. We have one coming up in Chennai, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Calcutta. These are the new ones which are going to get launched across. But the core of our business is sustainability. The whole idea when I spoke to you about the amount of water, ChatGPT consumes, the power it consumes, the idea is to build a sustainable infrastructure. So if you look at the core of our business, we will be fully carbon neutral by 2030. We have the lowest industry's PUE, which is very, very critical when you're running these data centers. We will be running on 100% renewable energy by 2030. We, in fact, have one of the first ever fully powered solar building in Mumbai. The whole building, DC, is actually solar powered. And our focus is always on innovations which brings in sustainability into the data centers which are there. And the reason why this becomes critical is, as and when you have more and more Gen AI platforms being used by customers, the core of that business will not just be the underlying infrastructure. That's very easy. You will find anybody giving you a server, anybody giving you a storage. That's the very easy part to deliver. But what is critical is the ability to actually host them and run it with the kind of power, with the kind of efficiency and the cost which you need to run it. And that is the reason why you will find CtrlS focusing on sustainability as a core of its infrastructure. So anything which you look at in the future, you please ensure that you keep the area which I spoke to you about, keep that in mind. And when you look at implementing anything as far as platforms and Gen AI is concerned, do reach out to us. We'll be very happy to help you. Otherwise, thank you so much, and it's a pleasure talking to you.
Sir, could you please stay back and present the next awards? Thank you.